Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another video. As you may remember, or you may not, I made a video about 2 weeks ago about my new PC, and this is the video to explain how good it is, like what frame rates I get, and all of that. Okay, so, let's just go in Ryzen Master. Here we go. I have overclocked it to 4.275 gigahertz. I was able to get 4.3 stable, but then in some tasks, it just crashed completely. Yeah, in that 1.181 volts, that's probably the highest I'm gonna get. And I am going to run Cinebench now. Okay, as you can see, I got 2,421 points, which is 1 point higher than the 7700K, which I am very proud of. And the CPU gets to about 80 degrees under load, like a full Cinebench, and that's when I'm also running the GPU at full throttle. So let's open up Furmark and let's test GPU. Okay, here we go. See, it's bouncing between 74 and 75, but it's pretty flat. It's around 75 degrees that it levels out. Okay, now this is gonna be a voiceover because I couldn't be bothered. As you can see, CSGO runs about 200 FPS. Like on low detail scenes, it's like 300, but when it goes through smoke, it's like 50, which, I mean, you can just turn down the details, it's perfectly fine. It's just like that. Okay, now, GTA 5. These are the settings. It's like almost max. There are just a few things turned down, so it can hit like 70 or 80 FPS sometimes. And like on this scene, it's around 75, bounces into the 80s and down into the 60s or high 50s. On this scene, it's like 65, high 50s. It's pretty decent. On this scene, it's around 70, bounces into low 60s, but yeah, here, mid 60s, low 70s, high 50s. Here, just sitting 60 FPS, goes to mid 50s for a few seconds. Low 50s for a few, because there's a lot of detail here. And then once it goes into the plane, like locks onto the plane, it jumps up to around 75, which is decent. Right, like now it's 75, I saw 60, high 60s, saw low 80s. Here the CPU just maxes out because it's trying to load in all of the cars at once. And yeah. Now going into this Hummer scene, it's at low 80s, high 80s, somewhere around there, 75. The GPU just stays maxed for this entire thing. CPU goes to higher usage when there's a ton of cars and you're in the city, so the CPU bumps 200% sometimes, but I mean, that's okay. And during this explosion, it dips a little bit into the 60s, but usually sits around 70s. And now this is KSP. This is me testing the explosion to see how bad the explosions affect FPS and like stuttering. So I put a big tank on the front of the rocket, and I just launched it because I could, just to see. And if you look at the little line, you can see it jumps around a little bit, but not that bad. And here, with a lot of parts blowing up, it bounces around. And then this is a giant 900 part model, which means it's very FPS intensive. That's why it's at 13 FPS right now. And now it just froze. And there it is. It's launched. This model, I believe, got corrupted, so the main engine broke. So now it just falls and freezes the computer because it's a 900 part model. And I sped this up because it actually took a really long time to break. And KSP not responsive. Now it's Fortnite. This is a bit stuttery, I have no idea why, but it gets smooth. I think my GPU was working too hard for this because it's very stuttery, I have no idea why. Now I put it to high. It hits around 90. On epic settings it was around 60. It could hold 60. It's around 80 FPS on high. Still very stuttery, I have no idea why. Now I turn out to medium. And it can hit around 100 FPS. Somewhere around there. I believe my bitrate was too low for this. Now everything's on low, and it hits around 140 FPS, somewhere around there. So yeah. And if I look at where there's tons of people, it dips into hundreds, but that's perfectly fine. Hey, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe and smash that like button. And as always, remember to screw with confidence.